Spreading it around.
Yes.
We're going to ask you the same questions we're asking of all candidates.
Okay.
However, based on your resume and/or
That's yours.
answers that you may give, we might ask follow-up questions that you'd be the only person we'd ask them of.
Okay.
All right, so I want you to understand the fairness of that.
Okay.
And then when we're all done with our questions, we'll give you the opportunity to ask us any questions you'd like.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Tell us about yourself, your education, experience, and interest in this position. And the second part is, what would your last supervisor say about your performance?
Okay, my education, I have a little bit of college, but I never finished a degree. You know, I've been with the highway department for 21 years now. Actually, in November will be 21 years. I mean, I've learned the ins and outs of the town of Dudley. I could probably tell you things about what goes on the roads, probably more than just about anybody could tell you out there. I've learned a lot these last couple of years from Vinny about the superintendent's position, because he's trained me, because he didn't know when he would be in or wouldn't he, you know. So I learned a lot about his job. And, you know, I learned all the paperwork side of everything and how to make sure everything was done properly. And I think I've proved myself lately that I've been doing a lot, because he was out for very many months, and I kept everything going the way it needed to be going.
Any follow-ups?
No, that's good.
Hearing none. Mr. Golenski, could you explain how your education and experience matches the job description?
Well, my education isn't as high, but my job experience and knowledge of the day-to-day stuff kind of goes together with my, you know, not having a degree or anything like that, but just learning, doing all the paperwork side of everything. You learn the ins and outs that you need to know about how this government works, and it helps in the day-to-day of everything that we do, and keeps everything flowing. There's things that are tricky in this government, that's for sure, that you wouldn't do in a normal day-to-day basis.
For example?
For example, like some of the stuff you have to deal with the state. There's chapter monies that the highway has to deal with. A normal person wouldn't have to, a normal company wouldn't have to deal with anything that has to do with chapter money. The way you have to file it with the state, everything you do is a step-by-step process. You have to have every bit of the money accounted for to a T, because otherwise you're liable for every penny of that. So you really got to know everything there is to know about that.
Follow-up, I notice on your resume it says Quinsigamond Community College. Did you graduate?
I didn't. I was probably like 10 credits shy of graduation.
Okay.
Stanley, you, since we're on the topic of education, you completed a couple of licensures in 2014 and 2015, I believe. Is that
A couple
correct?
of different licensing things. Yes, I had to go to, for the town, back when Danny was the superintendent, he sent me to an asbestos class, a course that we had to do.
Yeah.
So that, because when we were tearing down the dye house, people had to be trained in handling asbestos, if it came about, where we could handle it properly.
Now, follow up, if I may.
Mr. Joseph, go ahead.
That's 5 years ago.
Yes, but that class, it was only good for a certain amount of time.
Let me, just be patient,
Okay.
be patient. 2014 and 2015. That's 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
2 questions as follow-ups. Why haven't you gone through any other certifications in 5 years? And 2, if you had your druthers, what additional certifications would you seek out?
My certifications, I should have seeked out finishing my degree. That's for one thing I should have done, but I didn't. I don't know why I never did, and I kind of regret not going to finish my degree. In other certifications with the town, I pretty much, with the basic, for anything that we have to do with this job, I'm qualified to pretty much do all the basic stuff that we have to do for this job. I just don't have the advance for, like I say, a degree.
So the second part of my question was, if I may,
Mm-hmm.
what additional certifications would you be interested in pursuing, if any?
Well, for one thing, I'm going to have to pursue an OSHA 30, because we're gonna be required OSHA 30. So I'm going to pursue that, because as being in this state, I'm the interim foreman, I need OSHA 30. The basic guys are gonna need OSHA 10. So I'm gonna need it under the management level.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No. Well, question number 3 kind of tied in a little bit to this, but
Yeah, we got that, yeah.
Yeah.
would it be safe for us to skip question 3, or
Well, let's just read it out.
reiterate
Yeah.
it? What licenses or certifications do you have relative to this position? It'll be easy because you've already said it.
Yeah. Well, I have I have my Class B commercial driver's license. I have my hoisting hydraulics license to operate the equipment, because I've been the equipment operator for the last 11 years. So, and for your basics, that's your basics you need for the day-to-day with the highway department.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, we pretty much covered that.
Yes,
He did.
very
We
good.
didn't.
That's a challenge. Some of these questions, they roll into each other, and you answer one question, you come up with 3
And then we'll
others.
have follow-ups and,
We just want to make sure we get the core information we need to compare and contrast. Next up is number 5. Mr.
Okay.
Marcy?
Sure. Hey, Stan, please expand upon your managerial experience, including budgeting and employee management, specifically as it relates to collective bargaining personnel. So managerial experience, budgeting, and management, union.
Well, I was the union steward for 9 years.
You were.
So I dealt with the bargaining for 9 years with the town administrator back then. But I never did it in the opposite side of it. But I do know how, the ins and outs, there's leeways on things, and there's things you can only do so much what the town can afford. You can never go beyond what you gotta have your means. And I know, like, when we used to bargain, the guys would want so much, and I would tell them that they're only going to give you so much because they're going to take back, because they can't just give, they need to take back. So what are you willing to give? And guys would come up with something. I said, I think they're gonna go for something stronger. So, there's gonna be something, so accept it. So everybody's, when you're bargaining, you gotta be fair-headed, because there's no way you're gonna get what you want.
Follow?
Mr. Joseph, yes.
In a previous life, I was the statewide president, or the president statewide, of all of the public administrators and the Mass State colleges for a lot of years. And there were cases that an employee who was a union member wanted us to file a grievance and pursue it. And there were also some occasions when I chose not to do that. Even under the obligation of due fair representation. Have you had any requested grievances
Well, there was,
that you chose not to pursue?
yeah, because they didn't have enough cause to grieve on. I always told them, you have to, you gotta go by what the contract states. If there's nothing in the guidelines of grieving, you got a problem with something, a lot of times it doesn't go to a grievance thing. You need to find out what the problem actually is and see if we can fix it without actually having to grieve.
If there was ever a case like that, thank you, where it was a personality conflict, did you ever intervene in those cases, and how did you handle it?
I handled it to where we worked it out, where there's no problems, find out exactly what was going on and resolve the problem without going beyond that and causing a major problem, personnel-wise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Mr. Marcy?
Stan, one more follow-up on that, just to kind of parse out some of the words. Budgeting is part of your managerial experience, and being part of leadership team, you've stepped in and done that, but talk a little bit about, like, next year when we're putting a budget together. Talk about how you would handle that.
How I would handle it? Well, I look at our numbers that we already have, and discuss on what can we get more money towards things if we need something. And there's always certain, sections of your budget that could use a little, more money to it. So, you could ask to see if that section could be, brought up a little bit, as long as the town can afford to. But then there's other sections that maybe you can just take a little away from something else and put it in something, that could make it all work and not really raise the budget, but it actually keeps the budget in line and just moves some money around to make it, more workable, without having to always, take money from this to pay for that,
All right, thanks. And as part of that, requesting new equipment, if you need something big, how would you go about asking for that?
You need to request something, I would, I'd say, this is what we need, this is how much it's gonna cost to do this thing, like, okay, we need a new piece of equipment. We'll get the breakdown exactly on how much it's gonna be for the vehicle, get the thing and present that this is how much a new, piece of equipment, we need one. I don't know if the town can afford to do it, this is how much it's going to cost, and because we're trying to say we'll replace a pickup truck. For instance, like the pickup truck I drive, it's a 2008. We had to change the bed on the truck because it was all rotted, and we just put a different bed that we had, that it's not in great shape. They did a little body work to it to pass inspection, but that would be a truck. Say we got the numbers for that truck and asking for that money to have that truck replaced.
Makes sense, thanks.
Anyone else? Next question is number 6.
Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
so I'm
Johnson.
gonna read the question, but you've already answered it, so I'll ask it a certain way. Please expand upon your municipal experience and how it relates to this position. Is there anything else other than what you've already talked about? Because, it was,
Yeah, understandable. Let me say here, okay. Lately, I didn't discuss this, but the last couple of years, I've been sitting down with Vinnie and everything with the stormwater management, which is it's a crucial thing. And we, going back and forth discussing with the engineers and everything on how everything is supposed to be done and what our problems are, and we'll pinpoint where all our problems are in the town. And that's, if you don't know that stuff, it's a very crucial thing to this town, because that's something that we don't want to be fined for, is that stormwater management, keeping in compliance with that.
Any follow-ups?
I mean, just as a statement, I mean, you're kind of doing it, right? So you're in a unique position to actually answer that question, so that's not lost on me or us. Thanks.
Okay, no one else? Next up, describe a time when you dealt with a stressful situation. How did you manage your emotions?
Well, we opened the recycling center, and people are coming in and calling us every name in the book. Why are we doing this stuff a certain way? And you're getting stressed because everybody's yelling at you to your face, or they're calling you on the phone. They're coming to the highway department, and they're yelling at me, and I'm like, you deal with your emotions. You take a breath for a minute, and you just try to calm them down, and try to come up with the correct answer in a reasonable way for these people to understand. It's very difficult sometimes, and sometimes you want to, yell back at them, but you step back and you say, I can't do that. It's not professional. I'm going to talk to you in the proper way.
Okay. Any follow-ups? No, we're good. Mr. Sullivan, could you ask question number 8, please?
Good evening, Stan.
Good evening.
Tell us about, how do you organize and prioritize your workload?
Well, you have your schedule of everything you're going to do. You have like right now, everybody's coming back to work, so we got jobs that we have to complete. So we already know that we have to do those in a timely manner. But if a phone call comes in and a tree falls down, we have to put that job aside to go do the tree because it's blocking a road or something. So our workload changes day to day. We could never, we have a scheduled work that we're going to be doing, but if something comes about, we have to change it all around to make it work.
Thank you.
Any follow-ups? No? Number 9, tell us about your experiences with successfully obtaining grant funding.
Well, I have never had to write any grants. I have, no experience with that, writing any grants, but there's always room to look into it and find out what's out there for grants and put it out there.
Any follow-ups?
Sort of.
Yeah.
To follow up on this one and the budgeting question, just chapter 90, like how much have you had to deal with that, Stan?
How much have I had to deal with it? With Vinny, I've had to actually go out, measure all the roads, get all the numbers for it, bring it back. We go onto the computer, we print out the whole work request for our, for the money that they allowed us to say, like, I think it's $430,000. So all our numbers, everything we do, we have to calculate each job and come up to that $430,000 so we can put in a request for it. So then once we do the request, they accept it. The money comes to the town. Now, every job we do, the money has to match what the request is that we put in for each job. But sometimes you have to, say the asphalt prices raise up for the season. Okay, next year it's going to be a lot more to do the same exact road. So you might have to put in another request going back to the state saying that the cost went up, so we might have to change our numbers around and go for a whole for this on the same package and try to revise that and try to get different numbers for that. We may have to drop a job off there because we couldn't do it for the money wise.
Prioritization, say that. Oh, good answer, thanks.
A follow-up, if I could, on grant funding. The police chief has secured a number of grants over the years. The fire chief has secured over $2.5 million in grants for things that the town needed but never had to pay for. Are you willing to learn how to apply for grants, and will you actively seek grants that are applicable to the highway department?
Yes, because, I mean, we always need stuff, and the town can't always afford it, and if there's grants out there to help us, absolutely, like for road projects, anything, equipment, anything, I would be, definitely would like to learn to write the grants for these, find out what kind of grants are available for the highway, if there is any available for the highway.
I'm sure there is.
Mhm.
So you'd be willing to sit down with Chief Weiner and definitely Chief Kokonowski and learn how to do that?
Learn how to do it, absolutely.
Let me ask you a question that's germane only to you, based on your answers, if I may.
Certainly.
As a current and long-term employee of the highway department, who has a track record, good but not perfect. You can't be perfect. I have two questions. The first is, do you see that as an advantage or a disadvantage in this search process?
I see it as an advantage because I think I've shown that I'm a good person, good worker. I've always done the right things, and I've helped the town to the best of my abilities. And I think, yes, it is an advantage for me.
So my final question on that is, do you think that you have an inside track to the job?
I don't think I have an inside track, but I think that I've proven that I can step up when needed. I was already proven that I've stepped up into the position and kept everything going to day-to-day basis and without any faults.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nope.
No, good answer.
Number 10, share a time when you willingly took on additional responsibilities or challenges. How did you successfully meet all of the demands of these responsibilities?
Okay, back years ago, Vinny Paletta was only the foreman on the highway. He was out for, I think it was like 6 months time, and nobody was named like interim as an acting foreman, so I stepped up. They needed somebody to make sure all the jobs were still going, and I was the equipment operator at the time, so I kind of saw through that everything, the jobs that we were doing were getting done and done right. And I know Danny at the time was the superintendent, and he really liked the way I was doing everything. And so he kind of would tell me what we needed to do, and I would step up and do it day to day. And I did that probably for like 6 months back, I would say 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Any follow-ups on this? Anyone?
No, but I'm curious to know, I'm sorry, John,
No,
if
no,
you
go
have
ahead,
one.
no, finish your thought, and I'll go.
I'm curious to know if Stanley has any questions that he wants to ask us. But if you've got a question beforehand.
Yeah, just based on all the answers he's had, I've kind of formulated a follow-up on some of the things we had. Kind of plays off what Mr. Joseph asked you earlier about, like, do you feel like you have an inside track? It's related to that. Obviously you're handling department now, this is just specifically for you, right, not other candidates, but actually having the role of superintendent, and the relationships you've built or the relationships you have with the existing team, how do you think that will affect anything, if at all?
I don't think it will affect anything. The team I have right now, I think they respect me highly. Anything that's asked, they do. Without any questions, they just do the work, and they do a great job.
Okay.
We've had some trying times, and no complaints. We've worked right through some real tough times together, and I think I have a great team, and they all respect me for who I am.
Great question. Can I ask a follow-up to John's question?
Certainly.
Are you going to have any fences you have to mend if you become superintendent?
Any what? What was the question?
Fences to mend.
Any fences to
Oh,
mend?
that's kind of what I was at, but that's a, thank you, Paul.
Mr. Sullivan, do you have any questions of Mr. Golenski?
No, I'm good. I think we know Stan's history, we know Stan's work. I'm good with his answers. I heard him very well. Thank you for speaking up.
Thank you. And lastly, do you have any questions for us?
Okay, understanding all the questions you've asked me, you know my track record as an individual. What do you think of me as a person? As each one, do you think of me as a good worker for the town? Do you respect me for what I've done and everything like that?
Do you need that reinforcement from us?
No, it's just a question I want an answer. I
and
want
I
to see
just
what
want-
your answer is, how you feel about me.
Do you need that reinforcement from us?
Actually, yes, I think it would be a good thing.
I think you've done, personally, I think you've done a really good job stepping up when you've had to. I think you've done a really good job in your actual jobs that you've had coming up through the years. Look, we want someone, it would be nice to have a seamless transition, but we want someone that, and I said this earlier, that knows the difference between a friend and a friendly relationship.
Yep.
If you were to get the job, you can't be their friend professionally. You can personally, but God forbid that ever happens to take over your professional relationship, then we got problems. So you gotta keep those two lines separate. All right? I mean, and that's basically it.
So I'm the new guy. You probably don't know me as well either. What I do appreciate is how you've been here, stepping up, making sure the work's being done when there was absences, and we like to say in where I work, it's next person up. You always got to train your replacements. You can't be afraid to do it. Can't be afraid to hire someone that might be better than you, for the very reason that things happen. Someone could win the lottery, get hit by the beer truck, and we need the next person just to step in. And I know these meetings aren't always scintillating, but you stepped in, answered all the questions, you were prepared, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, Stan, I mean, it's a good question, and you deserve to know an answer from us, right? And you have stepped up. What's impressed me is, it's hard going from operator to just doing that, because people look at you different. My dad did it years ago at the Wilmington Highway Department, and he had a hard time right at the beginning, right? People look at you different. You've handled it. We don't hear a lot of stuff, that goes on. Things are smooth. The recycling center, you did. You got yelled at a lot. You took it and you smoothed it out, and now it's people are starting to get into a rhythm. So that was impressive. To Mr. Johnson's point, succession planning is always is something that Dudley's done. If you think about, even since I've been here, Danny that you can't be afraid to do that, right? So I mean, that's why you're here, and we're giving you a hard look, but we have to look at someone who can everything else too, so. But yeah, you've done everything that's been asked of you, and then some, so.
Mr. Sullivan?
No, I'm good. Probably not the right forum, I guess, but I agree. Stanley has helped keep things together down there, and the board certainly appreciates his efforts.
I'm gonna echo I'm sorry, go on.
I said I'm good.
I'm gonna echo Mr. Sullivan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan. Any other questions?
We're good?
Any other questions?
Well, do you have any other questions for us?
I don't have any other questions, and thank you for the
Excellent.
opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.